The slap echoed. Even the security drones hovering above paused, their optical sensors adjusting focus as if to confirm what they just recorded. Chained at the wrists and ankles, a bruised human girl staggered from the force of the blow. Her cheek flared red, a line of spit and blood trailing from the corner of her lip to the dust-covered ground of the auction square. But she did not fall. And she did not cry. The crowd of alien bidders, dozens of species from across the Kalenic Empire, watched in awkward silence. Some looked away pretending to be bored. Others stared openly, gauging her reaction like they were watching a vidscreen drama. But none intervened. Why would they? She was human. One of the last. The slaver, a hulking Verkathi male named Restor, bared his tusks and gestured for the girl to lift her head. I said kneel when addressed, wretch. You will show respect before the House of Chains. The girl slowly turned to face him. Her lip trembled, but not from fear. Her brown eyes, still lucid despite days without water, locked onto his in a silence so sharp it made Restor falter for half a breath. He noticed it. So did the others. The girl did not kneel. She wiped her mouth with the back of her chained hand and spoke, voice raw from dehydration. You should have killed me with that slap. Restor snorted. Should I have? He looked out at the audience, laughing, trying to turn the moment into theater. The thing thinks it's still dangerous. That got chuckles from a few smaller alien traders. A Nemerii noble in a gold-threaded robe leaned forward, curious now. Restor grabbed the girl by the collar and lifted her a foot off the ground. Let me be clear, little earthling. You're nothing. You're meat. Your world is a crater. Your species is extinct in all but name. You're just a story waiting to be erased. She didn't flinch. You know what's funny? She whispered hoarsely. What? Stories have survivors. Erased species don't talk back. Her knees swung forward, fast, powered by every ounce of fury she'd locked behind her stillness. The blow hit Restor in the groin, and though his alien anatomy was protected by plated armor, the velocity and angle cracked the lower plating. He dropped her, stumbling backward, choking on his own breath. A gasp ran through the crowd. She landed on her feet, barely, then collapsed to one knee, not in submission, but to twist the chains wrapped around her wrists. She'd been working on them for hours before the auction, using the vibration of transport skiffs to subtly loosen the weakened segment. With one jerk, the thin segment snapped. Not fully free, but freer than they'd expected. Guards moved. Restor was still reeling, one hand between his legs, the other trying to draw his stun baton. Too slow. The girl lunged. Not to escape, but straight at Restor. She wrapped the chain around his wrist and yanked hard, dragging him off balance. As he fell, she pulled with every ounce of weight her malnourished frame could summon. Restor slammed into the metal platform spine first, dropping the baton. The crowd was no longer chuckling. Don't shoot her, a voice yelled from above, the Nemerii noble. She's unarmed. I want to see this. The guards hesitated. Big mistake. The girl was already in motion. She rolled for the baton, grabbed it, and spun to her feet. Restor tried to rise, but she jammed the stun rod into the base of his neck and triggered the full setting. A hiss. A blue flash. His body spasmed. The girl stood over him now, her chest heaving, shoulders trembling from exhaustion, but her grip on the weapon was firm. She wasn't panicking. She wasn't running. She was waiting. Slowly, deliberately, she placed her foot on Restor's chest. In 10 minutes, she muttered to the stunned crowd, I'll make him kneel. She raised the baton like a war banner. Then she smiled. Silence gripped the auction square. The stun rod buzzed in the human girl's hands, its edge glowing faintly blue. Her bare foot remained pressed against Restor's armored chest, as if she were pinning down something far more monstrous than flesh and tusk. In that moment nobody moved. Not the guards. Not the bidders. Not even the wind. But up on the elevated dais, under the shade of a gold-fringed canopy, one being did stir. Lord Varnithi of House Nemerii leaned forward, the long silver fringe of his diplomatic robes shifting like spilled mercury. His three-pupil eyes studied the girl, unmoving. One hand rose slowly, tapping the rim of his chalice. I know that stance, he murmured. A servant guard leaned closer. My lord. That girl. She's not just some feral stray. She's been trained. Military doctrine. Precision torque, centered gravity, forward thrust post-impact. Exactly the kind we saw during the collapse at Bloodsteel Ridge. The servant's face paled. The ridge was a myth. Clearly not, Varnithi whispered. And if she's who I think she is, we have a far larger problem than a slave revolt. Down below, The human girl stepped back from Restor's twitching body. She let him roll onto his side, groaning, clawing at the dirt. His tusks were chipped now. His pride shattered. And his eyes, those furious, burning eyes, met hers with animal hate. He tried to speak. She cut him off. "Don't move," she said coldly, brandishing the baton again. "You move, I break your arm. You speak, I break your jaw. Try to stand. I'll gut you." Restor roared, surging up. Her boot drove down on his throat mid-sentence, cutting the words to a gurgle. She knelt beside him, pressing her weight into his windpipe, not to kill, just enough to silence. "I said 10 minutes, she hissed. "I meant 10 minutes. The crowd began to shift now, uncertain. Some were murmuring, others recording. A few of the alien nobles debated among themselves whether this was an elaborate show. That was when a sharp snap split the air. One of the guards had drawn a plasma cord blade, illegal for auction security but effective. He leveled it at her and stepped forward, voice amplified through his helm. "Drop the weapon and kneel or you'll be ashes." The girl looked up slowly. Behind her, Restor wheezed, trying again to rise. She pivoted, not toward the guard but toward the auction plinth itself. The platform where the slave ledger was kept. Where the biometric lock registered all purchased lifeforms. She sprinted. The guard cursed and charged after her. 2 others followed, blasters drawn. But they didn't know the platform. She did. She dove between 2 pillar struts, ducked a plasma bolt that hissed past her ear, and yanked the control cable from its socket. Sparks erupted. The LED systems blinked, then rebooted. In that flickering instant, she slammed the butt of the stun rod into the slave ledger console. Error codes flashed in 6 alien languages. Then a 7th. Human standard military interface. The device was adapting. She grinned. They hadn't cleared the systems before reusing old Terran tech. The machine chirped, then a name appeared across the screen, flickering like a ghost from a battlefield no one was supposed to remember. "Sergeant Liavex, active status. Emma." Gasps echoed from the crowd. Varnithi rose from his throne. "Oh gods," he whispered. "It's her." Liavex turned back to the guards now, baton still humming. "Orders confirmed," she said. "Combat protocol reinstated." The first guard hesitated. The second raised his blaster. Too late. She was on them before the third blink. The stun rod carved through the air with surgical precision. The first went down with a crack of vertebrae. The second took a blow to the solar plexus, doubling over. The third dropped his weapon and ran. She didn't chase. Instead, she turned and pointed the baton at Restor, who had managed to crawl to his knees. The same crowd that had watched her get slapped and chained just 10 minutes ago now stared as their captor, their auctioneer, their self-proclaimed slaver king, struggled to rise, and found her staring him down like death itself. "I told you I'd make you kneel," she said, her voice quiet, then louder. "For everyone to see." Restor spat blood. "You'll die for this." "No," Leah said. "You will." She pressed the baton against his forehead and let it sizzle. Not enough to kill, just enough to brand. The mark burned into his skin, a broken chain. The symbol of Terran resistance. The crowd began to panic. Some tried to leave. Others began broadcasting live. Above them all, Varnithi tapped a comm on his wrist. "To the War Council," he said coldly. "Tell them the Phantom of Bloodsteel Ridge is alive, and she's not a myth." The siren started with a low hum. By the time the first warble echoed across the slave city's sky lanes, every noble and guard in the auction square was looking up. From the horizon, black shapes cut through the cloud veil, sleek, angular, and unlike anything in the Kalenic Empire's registry. They didn't announce themselves. They didn't identify. They just came. One after another, the ships broke atmosphere, no lights, no trails, just absolute surgical descent. Stealth-grade alloy, obsidian matte plating, no markings, except for the faint glimmer of a faded Earth insignia on the ventral fuselage. A single broken circle, split by a sword. Human. The crowd panicked. Screams erupted as nobles shoved one another to get into armored skiffs. Some guards broke ranks, others activated perimeter shields. Restor on his knees looked up at the sky, and for the first time since his rise to power, his face was naked with fear. Liavex didn't look up. She already knew what was coming. Instead, she stepped down from the slave podium, her movements fluid now, less like a captive, more like what she truly was, a weapon rediscovered. A shadow fell over her. One of the dropships hovered overhead, venting compressed air that blew dust and loose garments into a cyclone. From its belly, a bay door cracked open. A human landed. Not jumped. Landed. The armor he wore wasn't Terran standard military, it was Black Ops. No rank. No insignia. Just hardshell plating shaped by war and flame, carbon-dense composites overlaid with scarred kinetic dampeners. His visor hissed as it locked into place, and his boots crushed the auction square tiles as he rose. Restor tried to stand. The man raised one hand. Down, he said. Restor collapsed. Not from fear. From something else, his neural spine short-circuited. The man turned to Leah, helmet retracting. His face was lean. Older than hers. A few gray strands mixed with black at his temples. But his eyes were from Earth. And they burned. Sergeant Vex. She gave the faintest nod. Commander Rook. The name silenced the remaining crowd like a plague wind. Even Varnethi, now shielded by a full guard retinue, froze at the mention. Commander Rook. Black Flag Division. The last time his name had surfaced, half a star system fell off the Imperial map. Rook stepped forward and handed Leah a fresh magcell baton. Longer, denser, and folded with hidden tech. You started the party early, he said. I was bored, she replied, flicking the new weapon to test its weight. And chained. He looked around at the fallen guards, at the weeping slaver prince trying to crawl beneath a skiff. Doesn't look like you needed us. I did, she said softly. They would have executed the rest. Rook nodded once. A second dropship opened above. More humans dropped, 8 in all, silent as falling blades. They moved like ghosts through the panicked crowd, separating nobles from guards, uploading data from the auction systems, tagging freed prisoners with evac implants. One soldier knelt beside Leah. Female, tall, green tactical visor. Ma'am, scans show 72 human captives across the district. 40 are still viable. Others? She shook her head. We'll make them answer for it. Leah's jaw tensed. No, she said. I will. She turned toward Restor, now curled like a beast at the edge of the square. The crowd had cleared around him, unwilling to get caught in whatever came next. He looked up at her, eyes bloodshot. You think you've won? He snarled. This city belongs to the Empire. There are thousands more like me. She knelt beside him again, but this time there was no baton. No fury. Just quiet finality. Not anymore, she said. You slapped me like I was an animal. Now your kind will wear chains in museums and monuments. Restor's voice cracked. I'll never kneel to a species that. He choked mid-sentence. Because Rook's boot pinned his shoulder down, and one of the other soldiers, a comm specialist, played back the footage of the earlier scene. Of the slap. Of the rebellion. Of the kneeling. What? Broadcast to every comm link on the Imperial grid. The Kalenic Empire was watching. And now they saw one of their slaver princes on his knees, branded, humiliated, subdued by the very thing they thought extinct. A girl from Earth. Leah stood, the glow from the holoscreens painting her face in blue fire. All units, Rook said over the tactical net. Clean sweep. Leave the city standing but take their pride. No kill shots unless provoked. Every system we touch, we own it. Understood. The soldiers vanished into the streets like whispers on smoke. And above them, more ships blotted out the sun. The auction square was a crater of silence. Where once the air was filled with barking slavers and the crack of whips, there was now only the low hum of active scanners and the rhythmic stomp of human boots reclaiming every inch of stolen territory. Leah Vex stepped over broken shackles and shattered tiles, the magcell baton at her hip humming faintly as it charged. Her eyes, however, were fixed not on the prisoners being lifted skyward into medical triage ships, nor on Restor, now unconscious, slumped like discarded waste, but on the old sigil carved into the plaza's base. It was ancient, hidden under centuries of grime and trade. But Leah recognized the pattern, overlapping triangles embedded within a spiraling Ouroboros. A warning. A door. She turned to Commander Rook, who was reviewing tactical overlays with 2 squad leads. There's something below, she said quietly. He followed her gaze. You're sure? Leah walked to the seal without answering and knelt, placing her palm against the center. The magcell baton vibrated suddenly, then went still. The tile clicked. A tremor rippled through the ground. And the seal opened. The stone sank with a hiss, revealing a stairway coiled downward in tight, narrow spirals. It breathed old air. Thus, forgotten lifetimes. Rook stared. Your call, Vex, he said. Could be a trap. She looked at him once. Then descended. The staircase led them into the dark. 4 soldiers followed, silent, armored, weapons primed. But Leah didn't draw hers. She didn't need to. The further they went, the more the temperature dropped. Not just in heat but in something else. The sense that whatever had been sealed down here had waited. At the base of the stairs was a black metal door. No handles. No seams. Leah stepped forward and whispered 3 numbers, 067. A panel blinked. And the door parted. The chamber beyond was circular, lined with hundreds of data cylinders, half fossilized by time, the rest still glowing faintly. At the center stood a lone pedestal, atop which sat an orb. She approached. Rook touched her shoulder. "We don't know what it is." "I do," she said. "It's the record of Earth's fall. And the reason the galaxy erased us from their archives." The orb pulsed to life. A projection flared to life, blinding white, then soft blue. An old man appeared. Human. Wrinkled eyes like dying stars. "My name is Dr. Caden Vex," he began. Leah froze. "My grandfather." The image continued. "If you're seeing this, Earth has either been destroyed, or worse, forgotten. The Kalenic Empire will claim we fell by our own madness. They'll say we were violent, unstable. But the truth is far simpler, they feared us." Rook's face was stone. The old man went on. "When humanity unified, when we stepped beyond petty politics, we became too fast, too curious, too resistant. They couldn't control us, couldn't enslave us, so they sabotaged our colonies, turned allies into traitors. And when we retaliated, they called it genocide." He paused, voice catching. "I sealed this chamber because someday, a Vex would return. A soldier. A fighter. A witness." Leah's eyes shimmered, but she didn't blink. "You must show them, child. Show them who we were. And who we can still be. Let them remember Earth not as a tragedy, but as a warning." The projection faded. Silence. Then Rook spoke, voice quiet. "We need to secure this entire site. Extract every cylinder. If even half this data is legit." Leah didn't move. She stared at the pedestal. "They buried the truth so deep even we forgot it. And now." She turned to face him. "Now we make them remember." Above ground, the sky was a forest of Terran hulls. Dropships moved in disciplined arcs, evacuating human survivors, sending down squads for population sweeps and intel recovery. Restor had been restrained in neural stasis and loaded into a secure pod. Not dead. Not broken. Just captured. Because this time Earth wasn't here to slaughter. This time Earth was here to be seen. Leah emerged from the staircase, data orb in hand, followed by Rook and the team. Every soldier nearby turned to face her. Word had already spread through the comms. Whispers of a buried truth. Of a forgotten voice speaking across generations. She held the orb high. "No more hiding," she said. "No more shame." One of the Kalenic nobles, still cowering beneath guard supervision, screamed, "You're outnumbered. The Empire will send 10,000 ships." Rook stepped forward. "And we'll send 10 humans. That's all it'll take." They left the city standing. But its towers now flew Terran colors, black and steel, streaked with crimson. The data recovered from below spread like a virus across the galactic net. Species long forced into silence now saw the truth. The Terrans hadn't vanished. They had been buried. And now they were awake. 1 month later. The Kalenic High Assembly convened in panic. Dozens of systems had gone dark. Strategic worlds had declared neutrality. And worst of all, slave markets were collapsing. Everywhere Terran soldiers stepped, the chains broke. And behind those soldiers came whispers of her. The girl in chains. The girl who made a slaver kneel. The girl who carried the voice of Earth's ghost, and lit the fire of its future. Leah Vex. Not just a symbol. A beginning. Thank you for reading. If you've enjoyed this story, consider subscribing to the Void Narratives, where humanity doesn't just survive, it reminds the stars why we were feared. New stories drop regularly. Let's keep building this galaxy together. Until next time. Remember Earth. They will. Milky Way Shield.